It's time to talk golf on Prime Sports Network. And as you know, Jared not with us this week. Jared is still on vacation. He takes the vacation as an NFL analyst at the perfect time of year. He'll be back when free agency begins in a couple of days. So in his place, we have had the privilege of speaking with him on several occasions, prepping for this exact opportunity where he can slide in Jared's place for a specific event, is Len Hochberg. Len, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Good to be with you, Greg. I don't know if I can replace Jared, but hopefully I can help and contribute.
I'm sure you're going to do a great job. And you have a lot of experience. Matter of fact, the Valspar this week is going to be one of those fields that we're going to need experience because it's not an easy one to handicap, but a better field than the Honda. Seeing Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, Fleetwood, Fitzpatrick. So you got some decent names in there. I think Thomas is the only top 10 player at 10. So what do you know? What have your experiences been about this particular golf course?
Well, for most of the time in the past number of years, it's been a real difficult course. Like all the Florida courses have the potential to be real brutes. And Copperhead has been one of those. For a lot of years, we've seen single digits winner often between 7 under and 10 under. The last 2 years, we've seen a change there, though.
Yeah.
Sam Burns has won back to back 17 under both years. So that really complicates matters. Doing my research, I've seen they seemingly are taking steps to try and, bring the scores back to where they used to be. They have the golf course superintendent sheet has indicated that they've grown the rough 3/4 of an inch from 3 3/4. And also the intermediate cut around the greens between the rough and the greens. The intermediate cut in the past has been 6 feet, which is kind of roomy, but they're cutting that way down to 21 inches, from 6 feet to 21 inches. So if you miss the green, good chance you were in that little fluffy intermediate cut in the past. Now you may be really in the rough, and so this seems to be a real attempt to bring those scores back to 10 under or even into the single digits. So, that's something we'll have to take into consideration this week.
Yeah, and again, it just makes it a little bit harder. Why not? We never know how the winds are going to be, too. So I know it's a little early in the week, but that's something to keep an eye on, the rain and so forth. So, at least it's a decent field, though, because you have match play coming up on Wednesday next week. I hear Justin Thomas, I guess, is not playing match play, I heard. I'm not sure who else is not playing. Yeah, Jared told me yesterday that Justin is playing this week instead. So,
it makes sense if he's going to play this week that he would be the one to skip next week because he's played 4 out of 5 weeks already, and this will be 5 out of 6, and that would be 6 out of 7, and then he'd have just 1 week off until the Masters. So these guys are allowed to skip one designated event without reason or just because I want to, and I guess that's his. So it makes sense in light that he's playing this week.
And I'm not really surprised either, and I think this is going to happen more often. This is like the first year, of course, where we have these big prized events, and which is great. I think it's been awesome so far. But I think that what we're going to see is, like, for instance, at the Honda, I don't think that field is going to be that bad next year. It's going to be similar, but I think there's going to be a handful of players that go, that's a pretty bad field over there. If I go a top 5 over at the Honda, I'm going to make just as much money as if I was top 30 at the week before, whatever it is, Genesis. Say I don't play well with Genesis and I play well with Honda. well, I'm going to play Honda next year. So I think we're going to see more of those types of situations because of the fact, like I said, I mean, why not? When the fields aren't very good, why not take advantage of it?
Absolutely. And also, I think, while things are still being sorted out for next year, the requirements to play the designated events next year are not going to be as strict as they are this year, where
Okay.
you can miss one. You can skip them if you want. Now, if you skip them, you're missing the $20 million purse, or as opposed to, gee, only 8 or 9 million.
Yeah.
Hope they can get by.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right. If you have a better chance to win, or if you think your game is more suited for that golf course, I don't know whose game is suited for PGA National. That's one of the bears of the PGA Tour.
I
But
pointed out that
yeah,
I thought Ricky should have made that decision. I thought that would have been a good decision for Ricky. His game is coming back. He's played well there. Why not go there instead of at Genesis with all those tough players and you're not at that point in your game yet? But anyway, yeah, I see your
yeah,
point. It's very hard
yeah.
to win at the Honda, even though the field is what it is. So. All right. Now, as far as this course and this field, we also have to keep in mind that there have only been 2 winners in the last 5 years. How rare is that? That we've had back-to-back
That's right.
winners, Casey and Burns. How surprising is that? I don't think that's happened very often.
No, it is kind of a rarity. I hadn't thought about it before, but interesting that Burns has won the 2 years at 17 under, and Casey, I think, was 8 under and 10 under. And in the middle, I guess there was no Valspar in 2020. We missed that because of the pandemic. So something really changed after I mean, everything changed after the pandemic, but something really changed with the course the past 2 years. And like I said, they're going to try and bring it back more toward that 10 under, 8 under number, I think. So, it'd be interesting to see who comes out on top this year.
Okay, so how do you break down your events each week at rotowire.com? Everybody has a system. What's your system?
Well, my charge with my DraftKings article, is to try and find golfers in all the different price points, not just tell the people, well, here are the 2 best guys and they're going to win. People are making all sorts of plays with fantasy golf, DFS. They're with their betting. They're not just all picking outrights. They're finding, the top price guys, middle range guys down low. So I really look at the entire field and try and get a cross section of guys all the way through toward the bottom that might fit into whatever you're planning to do, be it a DFS 6-for-6 lineup, 6-man lineup, or if you're going to play a guy, maybe for a top 40 or a top 20 or something like that. So I really do look at the whole field, and obviously it gets a lot harder down toward the bottom, and just look for value and prices and stuff. And, and this is the work that we were talking about off camera before we started, that when, people read the article, they don't, there's a lot that goes into it before that. Yep. And so I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of different guys. And in this field, there are even a lot of guys that aren't familiar to a lot of golf fans.
Well, we're going to get into those picks definitely in a little bit. Matter of fact, I'll post Jared's picks and my picks in just a little, probably in the next 5 minutes or so. And we'll do our usual. We'll go over the trends. But before we do that, what about, have you ever entered the one and done contests?
I am in a one and done contest with my RotoWire colleagues. We've done it for a number of years. I've been more successful in the past than I am this year, but they're a lot of fun and they're simple, and obviously anybody could do them, and they're great for a group and a season-long thing. And so I am familiar with them.
Jared says his right now he's leaning towards Keegan for his one and done this week. Jared's coming off a win last week with Scotty Scheffler, so he's hit on 2 of the last 3, Kirk and Scheffler. So he's in a good role right now. So he's got Keegan this week. Really, there's not a lot better options than Honda. Okay, as we've said. So you look at this. I mean, what do you do with Brian Burns? So that's the interesting thing. When you have a player, And we're going to see that the rest of the season. Patrick Cantlay's won back-to-back at BMW. When you have these players that have like owned a particular golf, especially if they've won back-to-back years, how automatic is it that you say, you know what, if I'm taking him this year, this has got to be the event I take him?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly are two schools of thought with one and dones, and one of them is sort of mapping out your entire season and looking like at a maybe a Burns for this week and saying, okay, he's won twice, I'm going to pick him here. I mean, things are a little screwy this year. They're different. You don't know if a guy is going to even come back to a certain tournament. Probably as a defending champion, probably will.
Sure.
But you can map that out. That's not the way I like to do it. You never know how a guy is going to be from one year to the next. Heck, we don't know what a guy is going to be like from 1 week to the next. 10 days ago, John Rahm was going to win every tournament the rest of the year, and now Scotty Scheffler is.
Yeah. Well, talk about the back-to-back win, though. Do you look at that and say, all right, let's say Burns has statistically maybe his second best course, doesn't have the wins, but he's played really well there the last couple of years. And I have a feeling that, he's on the verge. Or do you look at that back-to-back win and say, like I said, do you just say, if I'm going to take Burns this year, 90% of me I have to take him here? Because even if he doesn't win, he's going to play well here, isn't he? Or should it not really be taken into account that much?
No, it clearly should be taken into account. And yeah, I would think that if I'm going to take Sam Burns this year, and I probably will, this would be the week. But he has been very inconsistent.
Yeah.
The past 2 years. And he also I'm still really waiting to see if we can glean and learn any more information about the course before we start, because he has won in two very easy setups.
That's a great point.
It's going to be a much more penal setup, it looks like, this year. I've never had much good luck with Sam Burns. So I'm, maybe if you would have asked me about somebody else. We all have our own guys who we just don't. It just never seems to work out with us, with those guys. On the other, but you're right. Even if he doesn't win, presumably he'll play well, top 5 or something. You'll get a nice little payday out of it. Yeah, it is hard to map out the entire season of it's looking 6 months down the road and say, I'm going to play this guy that week. We don't even.
Sure.
There's so much that can go on between now and then.
And by the way, he does have 4 top 30s in 4 appearances. So even when he hasn't won, he's played pretty well here. And this included the other years when the course was a little bit tougher. So let's keep that into account. And the other name players for one and dones this week, you have Matthew Fitzpatrick, who was 5th here last year, but he's missed 3 of his last 4 cuts. So he is not on top of his game. Tommy Fleetwood is coming off a 16th last year, had a huge Saturday at Players, finishing 27th. He's played here again just a one time. And then you also have Jordan Spieth. Spieth, which is my top pick this week, by the way. He's won this event already, as we know, and he has a very good history here overall. He's at 12-1. Justin's 11-1. He's the current favorite. He's never won here, but he looks like he is as close as any of the top players from winning here, with 4 top 20s and 5 appearances and a third last year. And even Justin Rose, you have to take Justin Rose into account. He has 9 top 30s and 11 appearances here, with 5 top 15s and 2 top 5s, and is coming off a 6th last week at the Players. So even Rose is one of those players at the beginning of the year, not a lot of people would have thought that they would have even put him in their one and done formula. I actually picked him for, I forget which one it was. I think it might have been, I forget which event that he's really good at. I don't know if it was Torrey Pines. I forget. But anyway, or it might have been Pebble. I forget. But anyway, I picked him that week, and he didn't have a great week. He was okay. And then the next week he won. So he is playing well, no question about it. He's playing much better than he had the previous 2 years.
Yeah, and not to get off point, but I've been noticing Justin Rose, and Europe is going to need guys like him to step up in a Ryder Cup year. So to see Tyrrell Hatton play so well in Florida and Justin Rose to play so well already, that has to really be boosting Europe's hopes with all the players they have lost, presumably to live. But more to the point, one of the things I look at with the one and done, and we're in a league with maybe 40 players, 50 players, and you see some pretty outlandish picks every week when you get that many. There's only, in our league, we only do 32 tournaments the entire year from January into the end to August. You don't have to go very deep. I mean, maybe in a tournament like the John Deere where nobody in the top 50 might be there or something. But most of the time, you can pick a top 25 player for most of the year. So that's one thing to consider. I want to talk about Jordan Spieth for a moment about one and done. People obviously think about Jordan Spieth for the Masters and think that's the week to play Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth has not been great at the Masters for anyone thinking of saving him. The last 4 years, only one top 20 the last 4 years at Augusta. He's really not the same player he was a number of years ago. He even talked about it 2 weeks ago at Bay Hill, where he sort of didn't get it done. Well, he definitely didn't get it done on late Sunday. And he talked about how he has not been in that position much. We think of Jordan Spieth because we just think of Jordan Spieth that way, but he's not in the mix a lot on Sunday. He just has not been contending. He's 15th, 20th in the world for a reason. And so, if he's going to get it done, a lesser field and a field such as this, you're probably going to play Jordan Spieth at one point during the year. This might be a good week because you're not going to get many weeks where Jordan Spieth is in a weaker field.
Yep. Unless it's a Texas event. Because that's also I got to keep one of those. And he won the RBC
the week after the Masters a year ago. I believe that's his last win. So this could be a week for Jordan Spieth for sure for a one and done. Saving guys for the future. There are so many good guys. You don't need to save them all for the majors. There are only 4 majors. So
especially with the Masters, because they're right now, if you look at it, there are like 5 or 6 players that are really good there, like top players, better than Jordan Spieth, that have an excellent history at the Masters over the last few years, as Jordan hasn't. So that's something that you need to keep in mind too with the Masters, that you're going to look at that field and you're going to go, wow, this is going to be a really tough one to handicap, because there's some top players that have never had a green jacket that are really primed to get one.
And what's really another layer of interest this year, there are the live players, and if you think they're good. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't think Cameron Smith isn't good, but you're not going to have an opportunity to pick Cameron Smith all throughout the year, or Dustin Johnson all throughout the year.
4.
And you could say, 4
times. That's it.
I'm not necessarily saying pick 4 live players in the majors, but certainly a consideration where you can use Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm any week. But Cam Smith, this is, probably your best time to pick Cam Smith if you're going to pick him.
Yeah, and wouldn't he right now be, as of now, unless Dustin Johnson starts to play well, the only live player that you would think of taking in a major?
I would. In fact, when I do my preseason stuff at the beginning of the year, at the end of 2022, we're actually right after probably the fall of 2022. He was pretty much gone at that point, but he was my early pick to win the Masters. And, so I guess I have to stick with him. I'm a little wondering about all these live guys and how tough they are in the competition and whether they are battle tested playing against one another. They've played some other tournaments here and there, but not the elite fields that we see week in and week out on the PGA Tour. So this is all conjecture, but it just complicates the one and done. It complicates golf, everything.
All right, now let's get into our handicapping of this week's event at the Valspar, brought to you by PlaybookSports.com. And we are going to throw right now a run of picks here. These are just Jared's picks and my picks for the Valspar. And we both normally don't take this many picks, but because of the field, I think we have a combined 14 picks this week. I've never seen Jared do more than 5 or 6, and he's got 8. So he has a bunch of picks this week, and I have 6 of them. I'm going to get your take, obviously, as well. Let's talk about those top players first of all. Which one of, again, as I mentioned, Spieth is my top choice. Which one of the top players, Spieth, Thomas, Fitzpatrick, a couple others, maybe if you want to throw Keegan in there as well, which one of those top guys do you kind of favor the most this week?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about Fitzpatrick. You mentioned his sort of semi-slump of late. He's been battling a neck injury. He says he's been fine. Some of that, it might be athlete speak. Athletes are always the least reliable to talk about their own, in any sport, to talk about their own injury. Oh, yeah, I can get back in there, coach. Yeah. And, and we can see the performance. And some of these things are just going to be, one week they're good, one week they're not. Hideki Matsuyama's been sort of battling a neck injury for a year and a half now almost, and he was great at the Players, but, it flares, it doesn't. So Matt Fitzpatrick, not on my list, even though I was a big proponent of Jordan Spieth for a one and done this week. He probably not my favorite play this week among the top tier guys. I do see the merit in Justin Thomas. I do see the merit in Keegan Bradley. Keegan Bradley had a little bit better price than those guys. I mean, Spieth and Thomas, 11 12
to
10.
So,
yeah. I mean, Keegan is
25 to 1.
Yeah.
You're getting double the money on Keegan. Yeah.
Yeah. And, even in a field of 144, when there were so few guys, I mean, it's hard to win a golf tournament, even if you're the best guy. Yeah. No matter, it ain't tennis where number one will beat number 100 times out of 100. It's not that way in golf. So I do like Justin Thomas. I do like Keegan Bradley.
What about Justin Thomas's game, though? Are you concerned with? Because he is just not close yet to being the best Justin Thomas. So what's holding him back?
When he signed on, when he hooked up with Bones Mackay as his caddy, I mean, it was like we thought this would be like a super group, a super pairing, a star-studded, Tiger and Stevie Williams type of thing, that this would propel superstar golfer with one of the best caddies, and it just hasn't happened. He did win the PGA, and it's hard to just say, oh, he's only won the PGA.
Sure.
But he had a lot of help in winning that. I mean, he was sort of in position.
That is true.
But he got a lot of help to get into position to win that, and he has not won other than that with Bones Mackay. But he is a great scrambler, elite around the greens, one of the best golfers, around the greens. Talked about how, this is a week where scrambling could really come into play even more than usual because of what they plan to do around the rough. Greens will be missed and stuff. But it is hard to put your finger on why he hasn't won more than he has with Bones. They are probably, if they could figure it out, and they haven't been able to, I'm sure it's driving them crazy as well.
Well, if you look at it, since the CJ Cup late last year, and look, he's got 2 top 5s since the CJ Cup last year. One of them's Hero, and that's a miniature field. And the other was the Phoenix Open 4th place finish. That's it. Matter of fact, top 10s. So he has 2 top 10s since the CJ Cup.
Yeah, he's just not getting it done. And, and he has, that PGA win will go a long way toward keeping you in the top 10 in the world rankings. And as you mentioned earlier, I think he's 10th now in the latest. He's very close to falling out. Yeah, and the Hero is, I don't even like to mention that when I mention that guys have wins or on a roll. I mean, Victor Hovland, the king of the Hero King, 2 in a row.
Yeah.
And that's what's propping up.
Yeah.
that's what's propping up his ranking. You know, if there's a tournament that is the most live-like tournament on the PGA Tour, it's the Hero. Small field, no cut, best chance to win. So,
By the
there were
way,
better players in the Hero.
and I know this is taking us off course a little bit, but so I saw a note on Golf Channel about some tweaking and again, I don't know if it's, I think it's just the bigger events where they would not have a miscut, no cut line that they're thinking about doing.
Oh, with the PGA Tour next year? Yeah, with the designated events, yeah. And this has drawn a lot of consternation and a lot of from the LIV backers. See, this looks a lot like LIV. They're talking 70 to 80 man fields for these designated events with no cut, huge purse, no cut, smaller field. So huge, same huge $20 million purse, but not split by 120 or split by 144, but split by 80 or 70, so, but the difference is that you sort of have to play your way into those tournaments and you're not invited by Greg Norman.
And look, I don't, and I, it might be obvious of who's a little bit more upset about that type of change in strategy or in rules and things of that nature. But I have been saying myself as a fan, I haven't said it as much lately because I probably just got sick of saying it, but I really, like, for instance, I'm one of those guys, I just don't like it when you have these really big events and you see somebody that's had like 8 miscuts in a row come in and win a big event. Same thing with another sport like NASCAR. I cannot stand that for the last few years, they're handing over the biggest trophy of the year in the Daytona 500 to drivers who hardly have any wins. It just diminishes the event in my mind. So I like that idea because I also think what it does is I'm assuming is those players, let's say the 72nd player, the 75th or the 85th or the whatever, those are still good fringe players that you put them in the other event. And I just think it at least, and nobody's saying that you can't also have a few other decent players in it, but at least it gives you an opportunity to earn it in a way where you have to play well in that event in order to get the opportunity, like you were just saying, the invite to the bigger one. So I'm actually for that. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the smaller fields, but what I'm really not a fan of is the no cut. So much of what we do and where we try and separate ourselves as golf pickers, whatever you want to call us, is to get a guy through to the weekend. And that's the first step. And if you're just going to get a free pass into the weekend, well, I think that takes some of the strategy out of things. And so I really would love to see the cut stay.
I agree.
Even if they go to the smaller field. Hey, the Masters sometimes is in the 80s, 85, 87, not usually, but on occasion. And they still will have a cut.
Yes.
So
I agree.
They don't cut many. It's sort of embarrassing if you're 87 and you don't make the Masters cut and you're like 50 who do.
And it's always funny. Every year in the Masters is like there's always a player that's like 55 or 60 years old that makes the cut.
Hey, Jerry Kelly made the cut at the Players, the oldest guy ever. I guess he got in for winning the senior Players. Okay. That's my guess. Cool. He was 56 years old, and I think he broke Arnold Palmer's record. Arnold Palmer made the Players. Somebody made the Players at 55 and change, and Jerry Kelly, 56 years old, made the cut. I mean, it's a shorter track. There were most courses on the PGA Tour. I don't think the Champions Tour guys have any chance to make the cut. Even the Masters is starting to price out Bernard Langer and Fred Couples the last few years. But on a shorter track, a technical track where you have to think your way around things and play it safe, a Jerry Kelly or somebody can make the cut and did.
By the way, I'm not seeing your video on the screen. I don't know if you know that. There's a way to
I don't know where I don't know where I went.
Did somebody
I
call you
see
while you were
myself.
while you were doing the show? Sometimes that
No,
happens.
am I back?
No, not yet.
Am I
No,
back?
I'll let you know when you're back. So
Uh,
you can keep talking. I can hear you.
I don't.
All right,
I mean, I see my light on. I see my light on my
that's
camera
okay. You
on my
can
laptop. I'm
you can
on.
figure it out, and I'll let you know when you're back. Okay, so let's continue to talk about the rest of the field now. We've gone through the top players, and again, I only have one on my list, Spieth. The next kind of group, I do have a couple of those guys. I have Tommy Fleetwood at 25-1, and Denny McCarthy at 30-1. And Fleetwood, keep this in mind too, because this is important as part of the trends. And sometimes people forget this, but Tommy Fleetwood has still never won a PGA Tour event. And I say that, reference that, because if you take a look at the trends this week, you're going to see that that comes into play. First of all, 12 of the 21 all-time winners at this event are international players. 5 of the last 9 first-time winners were ranked outside the top 90, including 123, 153, and 205. 8 of the last 9 ranked outside the top 10. 15 of 17 all-time first-time winners made 4 appearances or less before winning here. So experience at this golf course doesn't seem to matter. Only 2 of 20 all-time winners won here on their first appearance, though. So that doesn't happen very often. And of course, it doesn't include the first event played here in 2000. Only 1 first-time winner in this event scored a previous top 5 here. That is also very strange. It does not include the winner. Does not include winners making their first appearance, by the way. And the last 4 first-time winners failed to score a previous top 10, with 3 failing to score a previous top 25. So let's kind of stop there. How rare is that when you take a look at trends that say it doesn't matter not only that you have played this golf course very much, but it also doesn't matter that you've had success on this golf course very much in order to win here.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by that for this course. Usually that can happen on the courses where you just, bomb and gouge and just hit it as far as you can go. But in this course, there are a lot of dog legs. There's a lot of, thinking man's golf. What side of the fairway am I going to
Yeah.
where am I going to put the ball? Because where am I going to be on my next shot? And where do I want to end up? And obviously in the hole, but so on and so forth.
Okay. Let's now go to. Actually, there's a couple more trends before we move on. 5 of 21 all-time winners made this their maiden PGA Tour win, including 3 of the last 7 first-time winners. So that is something to keep in mind. That with 3 of the last 7 first-time winners being maiden PGA Tour winners. So don't be shy about picking someone this week that has never won a PGA Tour event. Matter of fact, 7 of the last 9 first-time winners were making this their first or second PGA Tour win. So again, the lack of a winning experience as well, not a big deal this week at Valspar. All right, so McCarthy and Fleetwood, those are a couple of players that I'm picking this week in that category around 25, 30-1. Again, I mentioned Fleetwood, and McCarthy sure seems like he's getting close to getting a W, and he's played pretty well here. He's been under par all 3 of his appearances, coming off a 13th at the TPC last week. What do you think about Denny McCarthy's game?
Yeah, it seems like every once a month or every 6 weeks, we'd get Denny McCarthy Chalk Week on the PGA Tour, and I think a lot of people thought, sort of me, that he should have done something more than he's done by now. I mean, he's never really been. I don't know what his world ranking is today.
57th.
I could look it up, but yeah, what number?
57th.
57. Well, that's probably his career high. That's got to be the best he's ever been, because he really, for a long time, he could never crack the 80s, the 70s or so. So he's finally starting to make some inroads, and that is a good sign, because he seemed to really be stuck in neutral.
Yeah.
He would have good weeks or good days within a week.
He's still very inconsistent, but at least his good weeks are better than before.
Yeah, and he is really one of the top putters on the tour, which is great, but you've got to be able to do the other things consistently to really be an elite player. You're not going to putt your way very often to great success on tour without doing the other things. So it depends on the course setup. If the course is set up harder this year, I don't think I'd be big on Denny McCarthy, but if we can see the winning score get close to 17 under again, and you can, like Sam Burns putted out of his mind last year, and actually both years, then Denny McCarthy can make a dent.
All right. What about Justin Suh? A player have not talked much about on this show and channel. 77th in the world. Suh is playing as well as we've seen him play recently. In his last three events, the three events down in Florida, he was 6th last week, 24th at Bay Hill, and 5th at the Honda. So that's a really good showing so far this season. This is his first trip to Valspar, so keep that in mind. He's 40-1. What about Justin Suh as a player?
Yeah, I'm very high on him this week, and actually was high on him last week. He was one of my picks, and in DraftKings he had a very low price, $6,600. I didn't expect him to finish 6th, but I did have him on my list. He's a very interesting guy. He came out of college in the famed class of 19 with Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland and Matthew Wolff, and the four of them were supposed to go on to stardom. And 3 of them did, or 2.5 of them did. But he was every bit as good as they were. He went to USC. He was every bit as good as they were. But he had some injuries, and it just didn't develop for him as quickly. But now we are seeing that. And yeah, he is roughly 35-1 this week. Yeah, he has not played this course before, but you mentioned that's not a deal breaker. And where it normally has been a deal breaker has been at Sawgrass, but obviously not there either. So I am very high on him. I don't know if he can win. At 35-1, he might be a better play to than some of the other higher price guys, because you can get a little bang for your buck there.
That's true. Yeah.
And he's even 3.5-1 plus 360 for a top 10. So yeah, very high on him. I think we're finally seeing what we expected from him 4 years ago, but not everyone becomes a star at the same pace. No, not everyone finds their footing of life on the PGA Tour, of travel on the PGA Tour, and he might have just needed more adjustment than the other guys, but he's still pretty darn young, as are Morikawa and Hovland.
Okay. Also, as far as this range here, I have Ben Griffin. Griffin's been playing some pretty good golf so far in Florida as well. He'll be playing here for the first time. And Jared has as his top pick Gary Woodland at 40-1. Woodland has a couple of top 10s here. He won the event back in 2011. But he's been also pretty much hit or miss here, with 5 career missed cuts and 3 missed cuts in his last 4. But Woodland, what do you think about his game at this point in time? Because it's not really very good compared to that stretch that he went through for a few years, which included the U.S. Open win. He was just always a player that you would, be good at for at least a win a year. He was on that kind of trajectory, but something's happened over the last year and a half.
Yeah, he's certainly not the same player that he was when he won the Open in 2019. And he did go through some injuries. And whenever a guy goes through an injury, like a back injury or stuff, they're very often accompanied by a swing change to minimize the stress on the back or whatever their injury may be. And he's had a hard time adjusting to it. He's had some good weeks. He's actually playing better the last number of weeks. He did have a miscut a couple of weeks ago at probably on Bay Hill, I think. But, when I was on him that week, I thought I saw something. He has been playing better. He talks about being healthy. I actually am a little bit high on him this week. Okay. I do like him, if not necessarily to win, but for, still 8.5 to 1 for a top 5 or 4 to 1 for a top 10. He is hit or miss. I mean, gosh, they all are. Yeah, but I do have Gary Woodland on my list this week.
All right. Yeah. Brandon Wu, ranked 104th in the world, is one of Jared's top picks. Wu, coming off a 19th at the Players and a 14th at the Honda, was also runner-up at Pebble not too long ago. So what about Brandon Wu?
Yeah, a lot to like there for those reasons. He's just a young player who is coming, and you have to keep your woos straight. There's Dylan Wu is also not quite there as good as Brandon Wu, but also coming on and had a number of good weeks. And there's and I see both of them on
Jared's list.
On Jared's list.
Dylan, yeah.
And I could see one a lot pricier than the other, and one but I do happen to like them both, and Dylan Wu especially down there. I don't think Dylan Wu is necessarily better than Brandon Wu, but price wise and where he is in that range, yeah. But both these guys are young players who are coming.
Yeah, Brandon is one of a couple of players on Jared's list that I was thinking about taking as well. Brandon coming off a 33rd, 6 under par last year appearance. So he does have one appearance on the golf course, and he's got pretty good odds, about 55 to 1. I have at 65 to 1 Taylor Moore, and Jared has Johnny Vegas at 65 to 1. Vegas has actually improved here just about all of his appearances, which is nice to see. 7 under par, 27th last year. For Moore, he doesn't have a lot of experience here. He missed a cut last year. 35th at Players and 39th before that. But prior, he was on a nice roll. And I like this Tyler Moore kid. I think Tyler Moore is a player that is on the verge, and I think that if he's going to win, he's probably going to win at one of these types of events.
Yeah, we only have 2 Woos, but we got a lot of Tylers and Taylors on the PGA Tour. Something must have been at country clubs about 24, 25 years ago, where just a run on that name. But seriously, Moore is he is clearly is coming. There's I know a lot of people like Moore this week. That actually scares me when too many people. I've read a number of articles where Moore. Johnny Vega, fantastic year off the tee to green. Really one of the top players. Strokes gained off the tee. Horrific putter. He was outside the top 200 in putting. Which is really holding him back. If you want one or the other, you want the off the tee, you want the irons, but you have to be able to putt a little bit. So if the course does actually get tougher this year, and they do really rein in the lower scores, that would certainly be an advantage to Johnny Vegas. But if you are going to have to make a bunch of putts this week, then that really diminishes his value.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point, which is nice to know, that it's looking like there are a lot of people out there that are going with Moore this week, because I agree. I don't even like it when a lot of the analysts all kind of gravitate towards a top player, which is a lot easier to do. When you gravitate towards a long shot, then it's like, oh, forget it. I mean, if everybody likes that long shot this week, well, that long shot ain't coming in. So, yeah, Very,
Mhm.
very interesting that that's the case. But it does show you that the kid is liked, and there's a lot of people who do believe that he's on his way. At 80 to 1, Jared's gone with Nate Lashley. 90 to 1, Naismith in the list, and I've got Duncan at 90 to 1. Lashley at 80 to 1, I guess, is the biggest surprise. But he had a pretty good week last week.
Yeah, and like so many of these guys, they can occasionally have a good week. In fact, most of these guys sort of make their living 4 or 5 weeks out of the year. They make 80 to 90% of their money, and they just happen to have a good week. And it's very easy for us to fall into the trap. Well, Nate Lashley had a good week last week. I think he'll have a good week this week. But Nate Lashley doesn't have a lot of good weeks. That's not to say he can't have a good week again this week, but he's Nate Lashley for a reason.
Well, actually, before you move on, let's keep in mind that he got off to a good start last week, then went 73-75 on the weekend. That wasn't all that great, but I believe the reason Jared is going with him is because he was coming off a 3rd at Puerto Rico and a 20th at Genesis. Now, the 20th at Genesis is very interesting. So he was really on a roll. 20th Genesis, 3rd Puerto Rico, good first couple of rounds. Had players, then his game kind of went to crap over the weekend. But hey, maybe he's got enough confidence to come back this weekend, in a lesser field like Puerto Rico. Not as less as Puerto Rico, but not the craziest idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not without. It's not like if Nate Lashley has a good week, I'll just go. What happened here? I mean, yeah. Almost any of these guys can have a good week, or even a good series of weeks, and have a good run that we normally wouldn't see. But they're all good enough to do that. But I do like Tyler Duncan, who's on your list. Tyler Duncan is a favorite of mine on shorter tracks and in weaker fields.
Okay.
So many of these guys, we look at them and their numbers look terrible. But when they're playing against the best golfers on these 7,600 yard tracks, they have no chance. And so their stats look bad. And then when they come to a tournament like this, we go, oh, this guy sucks. But, Valspar is not exactly a short course, but it does blunt distance a little bit with all the dog legs and stuff, so it forces you to do some other things. And Duncan has his best weeks on the shorter courses. He's definitely on my list. He was 3rd at the Honda. Tough course, short course, or not a long course. I mean, 71-ish something for PGA National, 7,200. And do I think Tyler Duncan is going to win? Do I think Tyler Duncan will get another 3rd like at the Honda? No, but he's plus 360 for a top 20. He definitely is a guy I look at in a week like this, and there are a lot of weeks I don't look at him.
And because he was actually about 440 in the world at this time last year, so he's kind of cut that in half, and that 3rd place finish at the Honda didn't hurt. And then also, as we mentioned, List, he has 2 top 30s and 5 appearances here with the 3 missed cuts. I believe he's around 90 to 1, as I mentioned. And the other one that Jared put in there with that price of about 90 to 1 is Michael Nesmith. And he was also an interesting, he was the other player that I was looking at because he's played here twice, 21st in 2021, 3rd last year. So he's a horse for the course. The problem is that he's missed 3 of his last 4 cuts. That's kind of what scared me a little bit away. But anytime I see a guy that looks like it's a horse for the course kind of deal, you have to go for it, especially when you're like 90 to 1.
Yeah, I think you certainly have to consider him down there. He's a good iron player, or he has the potential and has been a good iron player, which is always a thing that I look at when I'm looking for a long shot. I'm not, strokes gained approach, greens in regulation. These are the 2 basic things to look at when you're just looking to get, to the weekend and hope for the best and stuff. And he's been struggling a bit, but he is he's a better iron player than he's been showing.
And Austin Smotherman is Jared's big long shot at 180-1, coming off a 35th at the Players. He played here last year with a very solid 25th at 8 under par. He's ranked 351st in the world. And he does have, I believe he has 2 professional wins, including a KFT win a couple of years ago. So are you surprised that Jared went with Smotherman as along with Dylan Wu as his big long shots this week?
No, Dylan Wu, is on my radar, and he might have had him picked recently. Maybe it was at the Honda. I had him on my list a couple of weeks ago for something, and he did okay. He did well. He had a good week. Smotherman, like so many of these other guys, he has good weeks. He has good weeks, and then you say, well, he's 350th in the world. Okay, he's 350th in the world for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, he could finish 25th. I don't know if I'd play him, certainly wouldn't play him as an outright or anything, but, as a top 20 or a top 40, wherever you're playing, and if you can get that, Smotherman certainly could have a good week. And some guys just play well at certain places and don't play well at other places.
It's the hardest thing in the world to do, which is when you know that you're going to an event where long shots have won quite a bit. It's just the hardest thing in the world to do is to pick the right long shot. It's not the way I'd like to do handicapping in golf. Sure, if you get the right guy, it's a beautiful thing. But I think that's only happened to me maybe once in my entire career, was that I picked a guy, and I think it was that long shot player that won at RBC Heritage like 3 years ago. I forget the name of that guy. I think he was an Asian player. Anyway, it's very hard. Kramer Hickok is my long shot at 130-1, and we're still waiting for Kramer to make that kind of next step in his game. He had that big tussle in 2021 with Jordan Spieth. I believe that was a playoff loss, and he just hasn't had the follow-up. But I like his last 3 appearances. Solid on tough golf courses. I think that's probably one of his best stretches, to tell you the truth, that I've seen out of Kramer Hickok. So I figured, you know what? Again, we're looking for long shots. The other thing I like about Hickok coming in here is he was 3 over par first appearance 3 years ago, even par second appearance 2 years ago, and 6 under par third appearance last year. So if he keeps that trajectory up, then maybe he's in for a good week.
Yeah, he's another guy who can have his moments and is a good player, and probably would have thought he would have done a little bit more by now. An Oklahoma State guy, he was with Victor Hovland. He's older than Hovland and was a star on that team when Hovland got there. Kramer Hickok had missed 8 cuts in a row until Riviera. And then makes the cut at Riviera on a tough place, and then finds himself in the Sunday final round with Tiger Woods. So, and then he beat Tiger by 3 shots in that final round. Tiger was struggling on that Sunday, but is where it seems Kramer Hickok turned himself around a little bit. And I liked him that week, and it's very hard to like a guy who's missed 8 straight cuts. But his numbers said he's playing better than, some guys' stats are better than what their leaderboard shows. Sometimes it's the other way around. And Kramer Hickok's stats said he should have been playing better than missing 8 cuts in a row. Okay,
so all of our picks and long shots are in. You've given us a couple of players that you've liked. So give me like an official top pick this week. Who's your top pick?
Well, I guess if I had, I'm looking at one guy I haven't mentioned that I do want to mention, and that is a new guy on the PGA Tour as of this week, Akshay Bhatia, the 21-year-old. He just got special temporary membership. He was the kid who bypassed college, about 4 years ago at like age 17 to turn pro, and really struggled and really looked like it was not going to happen for him. And it looked like he had made a bad decision, but he made his way onto the Corn Ferry Tour. He just finished 49th at the Honda. He was second at Puerto Rico. He has just gotten special temporary membership. He's 10th on tour strokes gained approach, the all-important strokes gained approach. He doesn't have as many rounds as a lot of the players do. So, but he just really appeared, and he was the number one amateur. He was the top amateur at a very young age. He really was a golden boy who looked like he was going to flame out, and now he looks like a bit of a golden boy again. He's 90-1, not expecting him to win. 8-1 for a top 10, plus 360 for a top 20. I do think he's a name that people should get to know about, if not this week, then in future weeks through the rest of the season, because he is going to play a lot of tournaments, and he does have a little bit of star power. He's going to get some TV time whenever he's any semi in the mix. So get to know him, and he appears to have finally developing. He's still only 21 years old. He's not as strong as the other players yet. The body's still developing. Akshay Bhatia, and 90-1. I don't know if he, but we haven't talked about him, and he's on my list here.
I mean, and I understand why you say when we go over these long shots, but they're not going to win. And again, statistically speaking, you're 100% correct. But the fact is that at this golf course, as we've gone over, one of these guys very well might win. So this is a week where we can get one of those, 100 and 105 or 205 ranked players that everything just comes together in 1 week and wins. But again, picking the right guy to do that is a different story. So is he your? But go ahead.
He's not my pick. I'm still formulating.
It's only Monday. You don't have to give us a pick.
I'm looking at Keegan, Adam Hadwin, 28-1.
Yes.
Adam Hadwin has won this tournament. He's played well when it was easy. He's played well when it was hard. He's not a long hitter. He's a conservative player. He gets from point A to point B very economically. Perfect for when this course is playing, Copperhead is playing tough. You can even get him at 6-1 for a top 5. I like Adam Hadwin is certainly very high on my list this week.
Hadwin finished 7th at the end of 2022 at Houston, 18th at Amex, 10th at Phoenix, and coming off a solid 13th at the Players last week. I'm a Hadwin guy. I really believe that he has the talent to be a heck of a lot better than what he's shown us. I think when you just take a look at his 61st in the world, okay, that's all right. That's actually been just about average for Adam for the past 5 or 6 years. But I think he could be better than that. I think he could be a top 30 player. I really do. But he just has to like any of those players. He has to be more consistent.
And all those courses you mentioned, they are shorter courses. I'd have to look to see what he did at, whether he was even in the field at Torrey Pines or Genesis or Bay Hill, longer tracks. But the ones where you said he did well were shorter tracks, and I consider Copperhead shorter from the standpoint of all the dog legs.
All right. And then just briefly, a couple other players to mention. What do you think about this Cootie kid? What kind of player is he?
He had won twice on the Corn Ferry Tour, and he certainly has the pedigree. His dad, his grandfather, Charles Cootie, won the Masters, I want to say 1971. So there's pretty good genes in those genes there to be a good golfer. And he got into a couple of tournaments, and he showed some signs, and he's I think there are some young guys this week. Justin saw Bhatia, Pearson Cootie, I believe. I shouldn't even say his first name. I wasn't even sure how to say it, but just call him Cootie. these are, guys that we may see on TV a little bit, maybe not all three, but yeah, I think there's something there with him. And he obviously has chosen to come up through the PGA Tour and maybe not accept an offer elsewhere. I think I'm glad you mentioned him. I think there's certainly merit to keeping an eye on him. We may see him on TV this weekend.
Yeah, some other players I was looking at. Rye seems to be trending pretty well coming in here at 60-1. Riley, we have to remember, lost the playoff last year to Burns. And he is coming off a miscut, but he was 8th at Bay Hill. So he's 35-1. And also Higo is a player that I'm not sure this is the week. I like the fact that he's 75-1 in this field, though. A very talented player, already has a PGA Tour win under his belt. I think he's a player to watch in the future. I think he's got game, but again, like them all, has to be a little bit more consistent. And maybe not this week because they're not playing particularly well, but I want to keep an eye on the Taylors, Ben and Nick. Ben from England and Nick from Canada. Nick is having a pretty nice year, and Ben Taylor is a player to definitely watch, I think. He's coming off a 5th at Honda a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, both good players and both part of the Taylor crew, some with first names, some with last names. And but Davis Riley, I'm glad you mentioned him. Yeah, he did have an off week last week, but he had Davis Riley burst onto the scene last year around this time and had a number of good tournaments in a row and really started to take off. And then the second half of 2022, he just fell off the map. We didn't see him. And then the start of 2023. But he just had a caddy change a few weeks back, and it's paid off with a couple of nice finishes, not last week, but yeah, it seems like this caddy change has given him a boost, and he's way up in price this week, though. Yeah. So from last week, obviously.
Yeah,
so.
That's kind of what did it for me, the price, no question. But yeah, like you said, last year he was going through that run where I had taken him a few times because I thought he was going to win. I was like, man, he's so close. He just like, what is it? He had the stretch between Mexico and Memorial where he had 5 straight top 15s. That's a heck of a run for a player like Davis Riley. And he just couldn't get the job done. Yeah.
Right. And then it just, I don't know what happened, but it just stopped.
Yeah.
It just stopped. And now this is the last few weeks are his best stretch since then.
Next week is match play, and odds are already out for match play. So match play is always a very difficult event to handicap as well. But bottom line with match play, I think you just got to go with the players that are comfortable in the system, right? Guys that you kind of look at and say, okay, they've had some prior history of success, whether it's in the PGA Tour or even over in Europe, that they're just comfortable in this type of format because it's almost an impossible type of event to handicap. And unfortunately, we haven't had the blockbuster semifinals that we've all been waiting for years.
Yeah, not like March Madness, not like the Final Four there. But with the match play, very hard to figure. You're right. The format is definitely different. Some guys do it. Some guys don't. I mean, I guess it'll be Kevin Kisner week. Everyone will be lobbying for him. He'll win a couple of matches. And he should be on the Ryder Cup. But one thing I really do look for with the match play, I won't make any picks until I see the pairings. I want to see who's in what group, who's in what bracket. You might be, if you're going to be in a bracket with Scotty Scheffler, who's going to be a number 1 seed, or if you're going to be in a bracket maybe with, I don't know, the 14th or the 5th, Sam Burns, who is potential to be great, but potential to be not so great. That's a big thing for me. It'd be very hard to bet for somebody, in Scotty Scheffler's group, but in somebody else, Sam Burns, Tom Kim, some top 16 player around there, much easier to get out of that group.
Yeah, it's matter of fact, this was the format that I also said I would like to see changed. I think because they're talking about these tweaks, and I'm like, all right, if you're talking about the tweaks of shortening the fields of these regular, these bigger events, then how come nobody's come up with the idea of the way Europe does it? Why don't you try and give yourself a better opportunity to have that great weekend of match play by limiting it to like 32 players or even a top 16? Why don't you do it that way? Then we'll have a really great, semifinal action and maybe a great championship action. So if you're going to do that kind of, you're gonna go into these events and try to see how you're going to manipulate them to your advantage. I think that's a perfect way to manipulate an event, is do it in match play.
Yeah, a tournament with only 16 guys would be pretty sweet, because we know they're all elite players. This may be the last year for the match play. I mean, it's certainly the last year for this tournament at Austin Country Club. We don't know Jay Monahan has said he wants to keep the match play, but right now it's up in the air. There's nothing definitive for next year. Well, the WGCs have slowly been going and now gone. There's no more WGCs. This is the only one left. And I don't think Austin Country Club wants to re-up. And so there really is no WGC anymore. You can't have a WGC with only one tournament. They may have something. It's not the best week to have it, 2 weeks before the Masters. Yeah. Guys are wanting to tune their game a certain way. Match play isn't the best way. I mean, there's really no good place to put it on the schedule. They have to put it somewhere. You don't want to put it later in the year, maybe earlier in the year. I don't know. But it would be fun. Some people don't like it and stuff, but I'm sort of growing to like these off weeks, these one-off weeks where they're different and maybe they're not the best things. And even with the lesser fields, Pebble Beach, I'd come around on that as well. And I'm just not going to hate tournaments for being different.
Well, everybody's opinion matters. There's no question about it. But yes, it's not. Look, you try and do something different. You're not going to hit home runs all the time, but it's better off seeing you try than not try at all. So we'll see. Again, maybe we'll have to turn this Live Tour into some sort of a positive, and hopefully that's what it'll do. And in the next couple of years, they'll straighten out the PGA Tour season, and it'll be a lot better than before Live Tour came around. So we'll see. Len, appreciate you stepping in for Jared. Again, for anybody out there that wants to know where to find you, at rotowire.com, and we'll have a link in the description area for sure, so you can click up there. Specifically, let the viewers know what it is that they're going to find with your golf handicapping information compared to the others.
Well, I write the weekly DraftKings article for RotoWire. It goes up on the site on Tuesdays. I pick 16 guys for a full field event, and not just the top 16 guys. I pick guys in the 10,000s, 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s, give you a chance to see somebody, because we're all looking to fill out our lineup with some lesser price guys. I write a weekly recap. I'll be on RotoWire Radio every Wednesday, the day before the tournament, and DraftKings The Sweat also on Wednesday, the day before the tournament. And occasionally, when people as gracious as you invite me on, I show up in other places as well.
Great to have you on, Len. I'm sure we'll have you back again before the season's over. Enjoy golf this weekend at Valspar, and match play as well. And we'll talk to you real soon. Did we lose you, Len?
No. Oh, I thought I was supposed to stop talking.
Oh, no.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. Bye, Len.
Bye, Mom.